There comes a moment in every life when the light seems to fade entirely. The path ahead becomes obscured, shadows lengthen, and uncertainty grips your heart. In these moments, people often ask themselves, how do I move forward when I cannot see where I am going? How do I trust when everything feels broken? How do I maintain hope when darkness surrounds me completely? This is not a question born of weakness. This is the cry of the human soul wrestling with one of life's most profound challenges. And I tell you this with absolute certainty. The answer lies not in the removal of darkness, but in the cultivation of faith that transcends it. We live in an age where we demand clarity before we commit. We want the entire roadmap before we take the first step. We want guarantees before we invest our energy, our tears, our sacrifice. But life does not work this way, and neither does faith. Faith is precisely the ability to move forward when you cannot see the destination. It is the courage to trust when logic alone cannot provide the answer. Consider the nature of darkness itself. Darkness is not the opposite of light. It is simply the absence of it. And here is what most people fail to understand. Darkness has never had the power to stop those who carry faith within their hearts. Throughout history, the greatest achievements, the most transformative moments, the most beautiful triumphs have emerged not from periods of endless sunshine, but from the darkest nights of human experience. Think about a child learning to walk. The child does not wait until the path is perfectly illuminated before taking the first step. The child falls, stumbles, bruises their knees, and yet gets back up. Why? Because there is faith, perhaps not in the form of religious conviction, but in the form of trust in the process. Belief that movement is possible, confidence that continuing is worthwhile. This is the instinct we must reclaim as adults. We have been taught to overthink, to analyze every variable, to wait for perfect conditions. But the perfect conditions will never arrive. The path will always have shadows. The journey will always contain uncertainty. When I speak about walking with faith in darkness, I am not speaking about denying reality. I am not suggesting that you close your eyes to the challenges before you or pretend that difficulties do not exist. Rather, I am inviting you to acknowledge the darkness while refusing to be defined by it. I am asking you to recognize that your circumstances do not determine your direction, and your current struggles do not predict your ultimate destination. There is a fundamental principle that many overlook. Faith is not the absence of doubt. Faith is moving forward despite doubt. Faith is continuing despite fear. Faith is believing in something greater than your immediate circumstances, something more enduring than your present pain, something more real than your current confusion. When you understand this, you realize that doubt and faith can coexist. You can have questions and still walk forward. You can feel afraid and still take the next step. You can be uncertain and still maintain your conviction. The people who have changed the world, who have left legacies, who have inspired generations, they were not people who never experienced darkness. They were not individuals who never felt the weight of uncertainty. They were ordinary people who made the extraordinary decision to trust in something larger than themselves. They chose to believe that their struggles had meaning, that their pain was not pointless, that the darkness they experienced was temporary while their purpose was eternal. Consider this. Every single person who has achieved anything meaningful in this world has had moments, sometimes extended periods, where they could not see the way forward. They have had nights where sleep eluded them because of worry. They have had days where they questioned whether they should continue. They have faced moments where every rational calculation suggested that failure was inevitable, yet they persisted. And in their persistence, they discovered something that cannot be learned in any other way, the transformative power of faith. When you walk with faith in darkness, you develop a relationship with trust that becomes unshakable. You begin to understand that visibility and reality are not the same thing. Just because you cannot see the way does not mean the way does not exist. Just because the path is dark does not mean it does not lead somewhere. The darkness is temporary, but your character, which is being forged in this very darkness, is permanent. I want to speak directly to those who are in the deepest darkness right now. Perhaps you have lost something precious. Perhaps you have experienced failure that seems total and irreversible. Perhaps you have received news that changed everything, that shattered your assumptions about how your life would unfold. Perhaps you are grieving the loss of a person, a dream, a version of yourself that you thought would always exist. To you, I say this with every fiber of conviction. This darkness, however absolute it feels, is not your destination. It is not your identity. It is a station on your journey, not the journey itself. The voice of despair whispers that things will always be this way. It tells you that you have been singled out for suffering, that somehow you are uniquely cursed, that recovery is impossible. But despair is a liar. It always has been. Despair lacks the ability to see beyond the present moment. It cannot perceive the growth that is happening within you right now. Even in this darkness, it cannot sense the strength being built in your character, the compassion being deepened in your heart, the wisdom being earned through your struggle. One of the most profound realities is this: we do not grow in comfort. We grow in challenge. We do not develop character in ease. We develop it in struggle. The darkness you are walking through is not separate from your purpose. It is intimately connected to it. Every trial you overcome becomes a testimony. Every struggle you survive becomes a strength. Every darkness you walk through becomes a light that you will eventually carry to others who find themselves in similar shadows. This is why faith is not a luxury or an optional spiritual excess. Faith is essential to human flourishing. Without faith, we are left only with our circumstances, only with what we can see and measure and verify in the moment. But humans are capable of so much more than that. We are creatures who can envision futures that do not yet exist. We are beings who can believe in transformations we have not yet witnessed. We are souls who can trust in redemptions we cannot yet perceive. This capacity, this remarkable capacity, is what separates us from merely surviving and allows us to truly live. When you walk with faith, you are making a declaration. You are saying to yourself, to the universe, to whatever you understand to be divine, I trust that there is meaning in this. I believe that I will emerge from this. I am committed to continuing, not because I can see the outcome, but because I have faith in the process. I am choosing to believe in my resilience, in the goodness that still exists in the world, and in the possibility of transformation. The darkness will test you. It will ask questions that you cannot immediately answer. It will present challenges that seem insurmountable. It will whisper doubts that feel absolutely true. But here is what the darkness does not know. It does not know the strength of your spirit. It does not know your capacity to endure. It does not know that you have already overcome difficulties in your past that seem just as impossible. It does not know that you are more resilient than you believe you are in this moment. Let me speak about the practical reality of walking with faith in darkness. This is not about positive thinking that denies legitimate problems. This is not about pretending that pain is not real or that challenges do not matter. Rather, it is about maintaining perspective. It is about remembering that you are not only your current struggle. You are the sum of every challenge you have ever overcome, every doubt you have ever pushed past, every moment when you chose to continue despite fear. When you face a dark period, you must do several things. First, you must acknowledge your emotions without being enslaved by them. Feel the sadness. Feel the uncertainty. These are not weaknesses. These are evidence that you are human, that you care, that something matters to you. But feeling these emotions and allowing them to determine your next step are two different. You can feel afraid and still take courageous action. You can feel sad and still move forward with purpose. You can feel uncertain and still maintain faith. Second, you must connect with something larger than yourself. This might be a spiritual tradition, a community, a set of values, a purpose that transcends your immediate pain. When you connect with something larger, your problems begin to change shape. They do not disappear, but they become contextualized. They become part of a larger narrative rather than the entire story. This is why throughout history, people have turned to faith during their darkest moments. Not because faith magically removes the darkness, but because faith provides a framework within which darkness can be understood and endured. Third, you must remember that the path ahead, though dark, is still a path. It still leads somewhere. You are still moving, even when the movement is slow, even when each step requires enormous effort, you are still progressing. This is the nature of faith. It is not about sprinting to a visible finish line. It is about trusting that each step, however small, is meaningful and is taking you in the right direction. The people who inspire us are not those who had easy journeys. They are those who had difficult journeys and continued anyway. They are those who faced darkness and did not allow it to become their identity. They are those who walked with faith when faith was the only thing they had left to hold on to. I want to address something that is often misunderstood about faith. Some people believe that if they have real faith, they should never struggle with doubt. This is a dangerous misconception. Faith that has never been tested is not really faith at all. It is merely comfort. Real faith is faith that persists despite doubt. Real faith is believing when there are legitimate reasons not to believe. Real faith is trusting when you have every reason to distrust. The darkness you are walking through right now is not a sign that your faith is insufficient. It is not evidence that you have failed or that you are being punished. The darkness is simply the darkness. It is a natural part of the human experience. And your response to it, your choice to continue walking, to maintain faith, to trust in something beyond what you can see, this is the most authentic expression of faith that exists. Consider for a moment what would be required for you to give up entirely. It would require you to make a final decision, to declare that there is no possibility of change, to close the door on every hope. Have you done this in your darkest moment? Have you actually made this declaration? Most likely you have not. Why? Because somewhere within you, there is a small voice that still believes, still hopes, still whispers that perhaps there is a way forward. Listen to that voice. Do not let the loudness of despair drown out the quiet persistence of faith. The walk through darkness is not a punishment or a curse. It is an invitation to become more than you were before. It is an opportunity to discover capacities within yourself that you never knew existed. It is a passage through which wisdom is acquired, strength is forged, and character is refined. On the other side of this darkness, and there is always another side, you will emerge as a different person. Not because your circumstances will necessarily be perfect, but because you will have learned the most valuable lesson that existence can teach, that you are capable of enduring, of trusting, of continuing, of believing when everything seems lost. This is the power of walking with faith in darkness. Not the power to eliminate the darkness, but the power to walk through it with purpose, with meaning, with the conviction that you are not abandoned, that you are not forgotten, that your life has significance even in the deepest shadows. This power belongs to you, not because you have earned it through some previous virtue, but because you are human, and this capacity for faith is written into the very essence of humanity. So walk even when the path is dark. Walk because the walking itself is the victory. Walk because each step is a declaration of faith. Walk because you are stronger than this darkness. Walk because the dawn will come, and when it does, you will be grateful for every step you took during the night. Walk with faith, not because you know where you are going, but because you trust that the walking is worthwhile. The darkness will not last forever, but your faith, your refusal to surrender, your insistence on hoping, your choice to believe in possibility, this will carry you through. This will ultimately define who you are and what you are capable of becoming.